Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happy Hour Podcast. I'm Ray. I'm sitting here with Mike. And of course, we're being joined today by two of the other War Pigs, Socrates and Blood, who are both filling in for Matt today. And we're sitting here with former ECW star and local Maryland competitor, Chad Austin. How you doing today, man?
Oh, it's great being a former ECW star. I didn't realize that I achieved that level of success. Being beat up once a week. I didn't even start getting beat up.
If Rocket Rebel was, then you would.
I beat Rocket Rebel. Rocket Rebel, who you ever beat? Nobody in ECW.
Well, see, here's the thing. I mean, Chad, you were in ECW. You were in ECW before it was Extreme. So how was it started? Like, how did the ECW stuff come to be? How did you find your way into ECW?
Being in the crowd. I can't remember what show it was, but I believe it was the show where Public Enemy debuted.
Okay.
It was me, Axel, Ian, I want to say the Judge, and another friend, Scotty Astro. Peace out, by the way, Scotty. And we were in the crowd, and Paul needed a tag team for Public Enemy to kill. Like, it was their first show in, so they were going to beat him up, right? So he comes out, and he knew Axel. So he goes to Axel, and he pitches the idea to Axel, and Axel was like, well, I'm not really looking forward, I'm not looking forward to just coming in and getting beat like that, So Ian was like, well, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So he takes Ian backstage, and we all go backstage, and I believe that may have been Eddie's last show.
Oh, wow.
The one where he destroyed the locker room, Doug destroyed the locker room, and Eddie went out and sold his merch at the table, like all his original shit, like his boots and everything. And Doug was swinging a baseball bat, knocking everything off the tables and stuff. And he was like, Eddie, can you cuss?
Yeah.
He was like, any of you motherfuckers try to go out there and stop him, you gotta come through me first. I'm going, I'm in the locker room going, what the fuck did I get myself into? And then the Rotten was booked Paul E for a show that Ian ran, and I was working Shane Shamrock. And I go into the locker room and I tell Ian, I said, hey, is it cool that if I put Shane in a chair in the middle of the ring and I do a moonsault, like onto him on the chair? And Paulie looks up and he goes, you're gonna do what? And I said, well, I'm gonna do a moonsault off the, onto the chair. And then after that happened, Ian said, look, Paul booked me and Axel for next week's tapings, and he wanted us to bring you. Right? I didn't know what to expect. I don't know. And then come to find out, they booked me as their job talent. Me and John Cristo, I think, were one of my partners when we got beat up by Ian and Axel. And then the other match was me and Don E. Well, unfortunately for poor Ian, he was on his way out. Of the Taipei death match, after that shit, he was on his way out. And Paul just kept Axel, and then just kept me. And he just kept doing little baby steps with me. I would still lose, but I would get spots in. But he liked the spots that I was doing. Because I was taking great bombs and blah, blah, blah. And, one thing led to another. Plus, let's be honest, I'm an independent wrestler. I'm cheap talent. Yeah. When I hear all the stories about all the checks bouncing and everything, I'm going,
hey, Paul was paying you 6 figures?
I don't think he paid me 6 times. but I'm like,
maybe not even $6.
I never had a problem with any of the paydays from ECW because Paul always carried an extra $100 in his pocket. So I never got checks. Right? I would just be like, oh, sir, because the payroll window was upstairs in the fucking ECW arena on some planet.
Oh yeah, a little like balcony connected.
You go up there, you stand in line, he call you over, and you see him tearing the checks out for Sabu, and then he'll walk over.
He's in the pocket.
Oh, hang on.
You're $20.
It would be 250s or 100, or if it was a double weekend shot of love, it would be 150, 175. But I'm like, I never got stiff on a payday, I got stiff other ways. Never were paydays from Paul.
Yeah, we can ask you about that. There was a couple of from this ECW. Why don't you tell us what you had to do, Jeff?
We jump right into it. We're not ready to how to get into the business.
We're on the topic of ECW.
What was your
Was it Donnie Allen? Because Ray worked Donnie Allen.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I worked Donnie Allen, which and I heard Donnie, and I'm like, oh man, I worked Donnie, and honestly, that was
He hooked him as an ECW superstar.
Yeah.
And he teamed with me, that's why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. When I worked Donnie, he was probably one of the easiest guys I had worked. And
He's just an easy guy to get along with.
what's funny, and I said this before, and you know, Chad, we know each other very well. There was one time actually right here at the school, one of the best matches I ever worked in my career happened right here at the school against Chad. And we just got in the ring and we just worked, and that was it. And I was like,
was it a show or was it?
No, it was just training. And I'm like, man, that was such a good match. But we did it at the fucking school, and I never had a chance to work, you know, to work Chad ever again. But got a little bit off topic. Socrates brought up the infamous story with New Jack, and we were talking a little bit about it before we went on. So, how?
Now we're gonna get Chad still on it.
Yeah.
All the way
I
down.
just give you a key.
First of all, I borrowed $100 from him, and I didn't have it. No.
I think he probably would have killed you if that was the case.
Yeah, he would have killed anybody for $15. We're at the ECW arena taping, and I see the lineup sheet that says Chad Austin and Blue Meanie versus the Gangsters. Now, my first thought was, I don't think that I'm joining the BWO. I don't think, because Paul asked me if I would shave my head. Because at the time I had long hair, I think I maybe even had dread at some point. And Paul asked if I would shave my head. And I said, yeah, but they didn't have like the shaver.
Yeah.
It was just scissors, they cut it as short as they could.
Yeah.
So they called me Stone Cold Chad Austin.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, well, maybe I am joining the fucking BWO. And then we go out to the ring, and New Jack says, Nene, you go with Mustafa. Chad, you come with me. That was the extent of calling the whole entire match, right? And then we go out there and he just beats me. I think he may have even beat me with the kitchen sink. Like he beat me with everything else, right? And he says it wasn't as bad as I expected, but at the end of the match he grabs the freaking chair and he starts banging my leg and he caught me like in between the kneecap in a little spot, and I kind of raised my leg up like, damn, that hurt. And Mustafa comes over and he's kicking me and he's yelling, you better get the fuck out of here. Jack's going to kill you. And I'm thinking like, okay. All right, well, you know.
I like that Mustafa is the voice of reason.
Oh, yeah.
I've met Mustafa.
Have you seen them facials that he makes? Like, I don't think they're works. I don't really think
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Mustafa is
Well,
here to the New Jack.
There's
He's
a
the
story.
voice of
There's a
reason.
story that I told about Mustafa smoking pencil shavings.
Yeah.
Oh, it was all that crack.
Well, Ashley did that shit too. Back in MCW.
Oh, I'm shocked with
He
that.
would smoke weed eater.
Oh, which obviously still didn't work.
Yeah. Like when I first wrote Room Breakers, he was sitting on the couch, throwing potato chips, and they looked actually trying to smoke weed eater, so he's not gonna be good for the day.
I remember there was a time back in the day when me and Axel would travel together, and he didn't even drink, much less real drugs. Like, I drank, and I occasionally I smoke weed. Like,
So it's all your fault with Axel Benson.
no, it's not. I had nothing to do with the heroin. I've never even seen it, right? And we would drive to shows, and that's when he had that old Ford Tempo. Bloody,
Yeah.
remember that Ford Tempo? How the hell did that thing make it to? It made it to Georgia. It made it to Dallas. It was like a 1984 Ford Tempo that, like, every time it started up, it sounded like it didn't want to start.
Yeah.
Right? And we would drive to all these ECW shows, and I used to have this briefcase with all my shit in it. And I'd break my shit open, and I'd smoke a bowl in the car, and I was like, "Do you mind, Axel?"
Yeah.
He was like, "No, I don't care." And then fast forward, you know, he's like, we're in the car together. He's like, "Hey, Chad, do you mind if I bang?"
Well, what's funny with that, and we didn't bring this up during the War Pigs episode, is that me and you picked up Spike Dudley from the airport. Yeah. We didn't bring up the actual like story of how we ended up with a cell phone.
Oh.
So we're with Spike, and Spike was pretty much like, "Hey, do you mind, you know, if I smoke in your car?" We're like, "We don't give a fuck. You're Spike Dudley, like, you know, whatever." So you know, we do the show, blood thrown down the bleachers, all that bullshit. So
He told me to.
yeah, we
That's
sit
his
there,
job.
we're coming back, so Spike's all fucked up, drunk, high, all that. We're driving back, and we hear our phone ring. We're like, "What the fuck?" And Blood sits there and picks it up. He's like, "This is Spike's phone." And like, he answers it. He's like, "Nope." He's like, "Yeah, this is Spike. I left my phone in your car, and you know, we sat there with the thought of a second of, should we drive it back, or should we just start prank calling?" everybody in his phone.
They had like
Vince,
different down like Heyman.
Heyman, Vince, Devon, and we're like, should we just try? And then we just went back and was like, oh man, he's like, I would have been dead if I would have.
Yeah.
You know,
So you guys could have kept it.
Yeah.
I would just mail it to him.
Yeah.
I would just send a couple of fucked up texts.
Oh, yeah. We're that far away.
And then just not put a return address on the fucking mail thing. And just have it show up at his house and he can go back and look at all the texts or whatever. And you're like, God damn it.
Before we get jump around and get too crazy here, you addressed yourself a second ago. Let's talk back at the beginning. When you became a fan of business and we decided we want to get into it, and how did you get into it?
Well, I go back to the old Carney days when they would have the tough men go around, and I think it was like 1942. I became a fan. Like anytime somebody ever asked me, like, what are my earliest memories? Because I was born in '72. So my father says that he took me to the arena for Bruno, Billy Graham, but I was 5.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I don't remember that. But I always say I remember when Greg Valentine broke Jay Strongboy's leg. That's kind of what I go back to. That's kind of like my time frame of point of reference. Like I just remember going, oh my God, Greg Valentine broke Jay Strongboy's leg. He's not even an Indian. He's Italian. He's Greek or something. He's not an Indian. I didn't know that. I in getting into wrestling, I kind of always knew I wanted to do it because I remember one day I must have been like 7 or 8. We're watching it and at my house, and I remember the figure 4 leg lock, and my dad trying to tell me how it was all just a bunch of crap. And I was like, well, let me try to put it on you, right? He's like, oh yeah, you know, whatever. Damn near broke his leg.
Oh, yeah.
Once I started hearing old man, you know, squealing, I'm thinking like, maybe there's something to this wrestling business. And you all know Barry Hardy, right?
Yeah.
Well, he married a cousin of mine.
Okay.
So he married my cousin, and he had a ring at his house where he would train. You know, Dwayne was over there.
You did backyard and stuff with Bob, right?
Fuck no, I didn't fucking backyard.
Oh, I could have sworn.
No, I had the tapes.
No, I'm talking about training in the backyard with
No,
Bob.
no, I have the tapes of Dundalk Championship
I've seen
Wrestling.
this video.
If you want to see some great stuff,
I've seen them. Yeah.
oh, you have there's one tape nobody's seen. I got to send it to my buddy to upload his Daily Motion page. It's Bob at his finest. At 15 years old.
Train boys.
Well, no, he had real legitimate. He was the only kid in the whole entire backyard fit that had legitimate trunks and boots, right? And there's this one particular incident where he was just called the Freebird, right? And he walked.
Did he have a mullet back then?
Kinda. It was like early
He
stages.
was working on it. He was working on it.
No, the mullet had Bob. It wasn't Bob had mullet. It was always the mullet, and Bob just came with it.
He comes out of the entrance ramp, which was Dennis's back door, and you hear this music playing, and Bob just comes out in his white trunks, pasty pale, whatever, with his boots on, and he does this deal where he goes na 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 into the camera with like no shirt on, right? And I just looked at it and I was like, this is precious. Somebody is
Someday this is going to be great.
like I can't wait to be this awful. If I'm gonna be anything in the business, I'm gonna at least be awful.
Well, guess what? You just were.
But then, I just started working out with Barry. Barry and Dwayne, Axel, remember Sledgehammer McGill?
Oh man.
Like all them guys, the surgeon. Like
I've never heard of that sledgehammer.
I literally didn't have any training whatsoever, and I was already better than you guys. Like, I couldn't figure out, like, how are you guys on TV? Like, you guys are terrible. They couldn't hit the ropes, you know? They were just, I was like, how am I going to learn from these guys? So I just started working out
So
with
who
guys.
actually trained you?
Nobody. It wasn't them guys.
All right.
I tell you that. So I was just going in the ring, and I
Picked
was
up and you went.
I would just be the bumper boy. You know, I just go in the ring, and they would just send me into the ropes, and I
That's the fucking best way to
If
do
I'm not mistaken,
it.
his Wikipedia page says Don Owen.
Yeah, Don Owens. Who would have been in his 80s? He would have been in his 80s. He could both be trained.
Yeah, it's almost like what is it? What's the movie with David Arquette? It's like, you want to wrestle? It's kind of like
Down and
And I put the ring.
Down
I put the rings together at the Democratic Club in Stony Creek for Dennis, and we would get in the ring and just stick around, you know, meet Jeff, Terry
Can I ask you about that? Remember your shows? Was that a Mercer WWF? Was it the same people running the
It
show?
was NWS, it was down a chair. But I lived like a block away from the Democratic Club. Like literally there was a small drawbridge that separated my house from the Democratic Club.
Holy shit. That was my first foray in Battle Wrestling.
Oh, how bad were them shows? Good God.
Was it my old WWF or UWF?
Yeah, oh, there you go.
Listen, before being a will.
Yeah, when they had guys like Jam and Joe and Blue Dog Kerry Davis.
American Ninja.
I think I remember American Ninja.
Yeah.
I came along with it when I was watching wrestling. I just went right to the middle of WWF. I don't remember anything except for fucking. I can't remember his fucking name now. It was Dennis who owned it and the fat guy. What was it? Randy Senior.
You
Yeah.
tried to fuck
Randy
my
Hurt.
up.
I remember Randy's daughter. Even as a kid, I was like, Randy's daughter shouldn't be ballet.
But Randy was a creepy guy. Yeah.
Things like HURD or something. Because I think he Facebooked me and he's like, hey, you remember me from WWF? And I'm just like, I'm looking at him and go, yeah, I kind of do remember you.
Yeah, it was Randy's dad and fucking I remember Mortis and that I was like.
Who trained Morgan?
Even before that,
Yeah.
even before like watching like Cactus Jack and Terry Funk, which was officially was like London become wrestler. Morris was like, I could be a wrestler if he could do it.
But
I could fucking do that.
Randy was kind of my introduction to the business because I wasn't 18 yet when I signed
sorry
up
about
for school. And he said he apparently told my mom that if she let him fuck her, I could go to school for free, which she declined. So that's kind of got it.
He did that at the Eagle too.
Really?
Me and Johnny Monster started wrestling, and fucking Randy came up to Eagle behind him.
Also, keep in mind the mom's like 60. It could be you, you know.
All right, there, Randy.
You too could be an indie Japan.
So I want to ask, BWO, you mentioned BWO. I thought you were there at the beginning of BWO. You weren't there at the beginning of BWO? You weren't a original member?
I don't think so.
Because I remember you coming out.
Check didn't reflect it.
I remember you coming out as the we're taking over sort of fucking thing.
Nah, that would have been Nova, probably.
It wasn't you?
No, because I was basically gone.
Yeah, Chad, I think Chad was pretty much gone by then.
I
But stuff from
confused
you,
with
Chad,
Nova then.
ECW was around 97.
97,
Chad
yeah.
95, something like that.
Yeah, I was there for like 94.
But you were in BWO for
A match.
a match.
Yeah.
A match? Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
But here's how I got fired from ECW. I never got to know this. I go back and I watch the show. I landed in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm watching the show back, and I hear Joey Styles yell, I don't think we'll ever see Chad Austin in the ECW arena again. And I said, oh, I got fired. So I never
You
did
fucking
that.
commentary.
Like, I couldn't believe I didn't get fired for the two other things that I did. Like, I was looking for a way out of ECW so bad because all I was doing was getting murdered. I mean, they were just killing me, man. Like, you know, they didn't give a shit about the TV guys, the job guys. I mean, I had no quarrels. People today, I listen to like Busted Open, and they talk about how they're enhancement talent. Like, no, the fuck we were. We were rag dolls. They just beat the shit out of us, right?
Crash test dummies.
Yeah, exactly. And like Sabu had heat with me, but then somebody ran into him recently and he was like, hey, why is it heat with Chad? He goes, oh no, I love Chad. Look, if you love Chad, why did you kill Chad? Right? So I was looking for a way out of there any way possible.
Shabu.
I mean, that could have been it. Right? That could have been the reason why Sabu had it.
Yeah.
And I think Mike had brought up to me a couple weeks ago, were you indeed the first guy that took the choke sign from 911?
Clearly, yeah. I was the first guy that took it 20 times. I took it to the point where he learned how to do it by doing it to me. Because Big Al pretty much couldn't do anything else. Like, he clearly was very, very limited.
Is he still with us?
No, I don't think he is.
What? Okay.
No, he's still up.
He's still alive?
Stars just did his son runs backyard shows. Stars just did a backyard show with his son.
I want to guess, 911 came in and chokeslammed somebody.
I'm pretty sure he did. I'm pretty sure he did.
Speaking of 911, what show was it? I know you were there. You made it. There was a show we did where they had him put a mask on. And we're sitting there, and I remember you were like, why the fuck do they have him in a mask? And they advertised, it might have been Kobe Pro. I don't know what it was, but they had 911 in a mask. And we just couldn't get over the fact. And they introduced him as 911. And we're like, why do they have him? He had like a black executioner mask on. And it was him.
Oh.
And we knew it was him. And you were like,
They had executioners.
Yeah.
As the executioner, I remember that.
Yeah. And we were like, what? We're like, we figured he would fight me.
He's more over than 911 as an executioner.
Yeah. And we were like, what the fuck would somebody like? Of course, it was Kobe Pro.
Yeah, it was Kobe Pro. That explains it.
Yeah.
I was at one of
Thanks for
the
booking the high priest.
early CCW show when they first got the ECW arena. They did the ECW Invasion.
Yes.
And basically just Sandman, I think Dreamer, a few other guys.
Who was this for?
CCW.
Okay.
But 911 was there, but he was, I don't know if he was sick or something, but he was so thin, and nobody knew who it was.
I do know that he did have, that's what, I don't remember what it was, but I know he was battling health issues. That's why I think that I thought that he had bad. Yeah, because I mean, I'm still not 100% sure that he's not.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I could have swore I heard that he was.
Yeah.
No, he still is.
Yeah.
Well, his career's not. I can choke slam him now. I should go knock on the door and get my retribution. Maybe I'll get retribution for all the beatings I've taken.
Yeah, all right, motherfucker. Now I'm going to choke slam you however many times.
Yeah, but I had to teach Mikey how to take it because after I took my many dozens and dozens of choke slams, I was like, hey Paul, can somebody else take this goddamn thing? Because if you watch any of the matches, well, quote unquote matches that we did in 911 had, watch the first two choke slams. Perfect.
Yeah.
This motherfucker couldn't do 3, 4, and 5. He was blown up, right? So you can see me go up, and you can see me land differently, on the side.
Sideways.
Yeah, like I'm just going like, dude, and then you just hear a crowd go, one more time. I'm like, no, he's killing me. Yeah.
That's how Nate O'Malley was.
And you know, you talked about Dundalk Championship Wrestling, NEWF. When did that actually convert?
Oh,
the
wait.
whole NEWF just started rolling because you were a big staple over at NEWF.
Yeah, but I didn't come along until late summer of '92.
Okay.
Like they had already been running as the ASWA.
Was that like
The Atlantic States.
Well, let me see if maybe they'll be up at 91.
Yeah, so and that's when when they had UIW, you can still see. I went to a lot of the shows at Steeltown, and as my friends did, we usually either sat in the front row, and you could see us like, you know, most of the time, or we'd be somewhere else, but you could see everybody and then escape because it was only there. But yeah, I came along later on, so I don't really have their birth date or when.
Okay. And early on with NEWF, when you got there, what was the first main thing? Were you still going under the ECW gimmick?
Oh, I wasn't even in ECW.
So
You
you
went to Memphis,
through
right?
that.
You went to Memphis.
I went to Memphis in '95 or '96.
Okay.
And I went to Smoky Mountain. After that,
So where did you go after ECW?
first I went to Memphis.
Okay.
And then when I came back, I worked another couple of ECW shows. But I was, like I said, I was looking for a way out.
Yeah.
And I ran in, my mom lives in Knoxville, so I drove to Knoxville. I went to Johnson City at a Smoky Mountain show, and I saw Mikey, I think his name was Tom Minowi. And I had my bags with me. And I said, hey, listen, man, if you guys need, you know, anybody extra, I got my bags with me, right? And the next thing I know, Tom Minowi comes over to me in the crowd and was like, hey, Jim wants to know if you want to do the tapings. But it was in North Carolina. It was like 5 hours, whatever.
Jesus.
And I was like, fuck yeah, I just want to be anywhere.
Yeah.
But it needs to
Anywhere other than ECW.
Yeah, right? I'm like, I just want to, and plus, I always loved Memphis style wrestling.
Yeah.
It's Southern style, slow style. It's not a lot of bumps. It's not a lot of heat. I mean, it's heat. It's not a lot of like brutal heat. And so I show up, and Paul Lee tells me, he's like, hey, this is what I need you to do. I need you to pick up Bruiser Bedlam and drive him to the show, right? And I just all I knew him as was Johnny King, right? I mean, I didn't really know much about him, so I pick him up, and we're driving to the show. I had a pickup, small Ford Ranger-esque pickup truck, and we're driving to the show, and there was a huge accident on some major highway. Well, it was a 2-lane highway at the time, so that's how major it was back in '95 or whatever, '96. And we realized we were running short on time. And I was like, dude, we're not going to make it by the show. He goes, drive on the side of the road, the shoulder. I said, dude, we can't do that. That's illegal. He goes, if you don't get me to this show one time, I'm going to kill you. Right? And I looked at him and I went, I think I'm going to drive on the side of the road as fast as I possibly can. And come to find out, you guys all heard the stories about him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, he's killed people. You know what I mean? He was like in the whatever, Canadian mob or something.
It used to be a common view in the early years. People
freaking do it. We got New Jack, Bruiser Battle,
Same way, they were telling the truth, they were honest.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean I got there and then I'm thinking like, wow, I wonder what Cornette's gonna do with me, right? I wonder if I'm gonna get pushed. Cause I come to find out I worked Bruiser Bedlam. I worked Cactus. Cactus actually picked me out to work because he knew me from ECW.
Oh man.
So he was like, well, I'm gonna work with him because I know it. And then I worked with at the time it was Boo Bradley.
Nice.
Another guy who couldn't kill me.
I love fucking getting
What's Cornette like to work for? Was he a cool guy?
I don't know. I just walked over to him.
Really saw him, yeah.
I walked over to him, got my check, and
I was going to ask you, like, what did you do in Memphis and sort of now? I never even seen you get any of your stuff from there.
well, I didn't do
You feud, any feud or anything, or me?
no, I did one TV taping for Cornette, and I did 3 matches. Like, it was me and Cactus. Cactus gave me offense, probably more than Cornette probably wanted me to get.
You always did that though, yeah.
Bedlam gave me nothing. But at the end of the day, I ended up winning. Because the referee disqualified him because he wouldn't stop beating me up. So that's a victory for me, I would say. And then Boo beat me just with his finish. But Boo, the reason why Boo wanted to kill me was I get back home after, Memphis was screwed up because I never got a start date for TV. Like, I went to the studio a couple times, but they just never used me. But I would always work for Lawler on the spot shows, like for Jonesboro or Blytheville, or because I was working for Burke Prentice for Ozark Mountain, and they were kind of doing like joint spot shows together. So I remember one time I was traveling with the Superstar, Bill Dundee, and we get to the studio, and somebody tells us, he's like, man, we got this new kid here. He thinks he's hot shit. He goes, he hasn't even been in the business 6 months, and he don't want to take any bumps. Right? and I was like,
That's all you do is
and I looked at Bill, and me and Bill looked at him and said, what's the guy's name? The guy says, Flex Cabana. And I said, dude, this guy will never draw a dime in this business. Yeah, and here I am going like, dude, I fucking passed on the greatest talent, probably that came out in the last 20 years in the business, everybody knows who Flex Cabana is, right? Like, yeah. Like, I said, he'll never draw a dime in this business. Well, he didn't draw a dime. He drew millions of dimes.
That's how much as bad as the first time I saw a Slipknot. I said, these guys will never make it.
Yeah, so I worked all them shows down in the West Memphis area. I did Evansville, I did the Loop. I did all the house show loops, but they just didn't put me on TV because I don't think they had a spot for me. They wanted me to do a skateboard gimmick because I used to be a skateboarder and I was quite good at it. But I was getting in my later 20s, and I'm like, I haven't skated in so long that I can't do that.
And after the dynamic dudes, that gimmick probably would have been best.
Yeah, that was Bill Dundee's idea. I'm just thinking like, I don't know, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could be a retired training home.
Yeah.
You could have been Darby Allin 25 years old.
Yeah, then after that I went back to Bert. I pissed Bert off my first fucking night in. I was dead in the water my first night in Ozark Mountain. I get there and I take a plane there. I get what's called the penny bus from wherever Little Rock Airport to some other smaller airport, and I didn't have a ride. I didn't have nowhere to stay. So I called Bull Payne, who everybody stayed there. Like everybody stayed at Bull Payne's house. So I called Bull, and Samantha's wife says, "Oh no more wrestlers staying at my house after what Terry and Tommy did, or Buddy and Tommy did. I'm not having anybody stay here." And I go, "I can only think that you're speaking of Buddy Landell and Tommy Rich." And I said, "Listen, Sam, if I could just stay for a night, just until I get, myself settled." And she's like, "Cool." But then she realized that I wasn't a problem, right? And I had money. Because I saved a ton of money knowing that I was going to start. So I took a ton of money down there. So my first night in, after a show, literally they rushed me from the bus that somebody picked me up at to the building, and they were like, "Hurry up and get dressed, you're in the second match." Right? And I'm going again.
Like doing that shit.
I'm like, against two. They were like, Billy McClarity. I go, "Where's he at?" He goes, "Well, he's in another level." I go, so we're not gonna you're not gonna talk. You gotta call it out. You gotta call it out in the ring.
I've done that. I hate that shit.
Yeah. Especially when you have no idea how good
Yeah.
it is.
Oh man, but see, here's the thing though. If you do that with any like young guy who's training, like new
They
guy,
wouldn't even do it.
They would fucking freak out because they don't know how to call shit in the ring.
Yeah.
You know how many times I see deer in headlights when I say we're gonna call something in the ring?
It's like I hate it, but I can do it.
Yeah. It's like, you know, come on now.
I remember like one of my last matches. It was for Brian Hardy, and he's my cousin.
You and Bob?
Huh?
Bob versus-
No, it was me. It was me. No, it was me. It was me and Christian. York. We get to the building, and Christian was like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Christian, we've worked a million times. Like we can just call this in the ring, you know, especially at a Brian Hardy spot.
Figures it's been years.
It's a small show, you know. There's 125 people there. We can just call it in the ring." And Christian goes, "Okay, that's cool, but I got this one spot that I do." Blah blah blah, and I said, "Okay, that's fine, we can do that." He goes, "Then I got this other spot that we do." I go, "So basically, we're not going to call in the ring.
Yeah.
Let's just go over and match him out, Christian." So he had like 9 spots that he had. Oh, this is what I always do. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude! I mean,
I worked you into this shit.
It wasn't pouring the ring to Savage and Steamboat.
yeah, pretty much.
And with speaking of which, your last match here in EWA, I believe, was against Blood, wasn't it? For the
It was supposed to be my retirement match.
I remember with that match, didn't you throw up in the match? And I believe you threw up several times, and one of which was the one Socrates.
Poor so crazy over there.
I can try perspective. You know, Chad might have a beverage or two. I'm not. He's got Blood's got him in the rear chin lock, so I'm leaning in to check on him. Do you want to give it up? Do you want to give it up, Chad? He looks at me and he spewed.
Well,
Just a little bit.
I tried to cover for you. I put your shirt
over my head.
So I had
So you're killing him instead. He's throwing up in his own shirt.
I had to referee the main event, which Adam Cole was in, with puke all over my referee.
Oh,
Thanks, Chad.
Damn, that was a rough day all around, man.
That was fun for me because that was twice the same week. I went to PWS in New Jersey, and you're speaking to Mick Bradley earlier. He was there also kind of against Marty Jannetty. He also threw up.
the match after Trent Farrell was running out
Good luck with them guys.
and slipped. Back bumped on the floor.
Well, I remember there was a time I worked Blood. This is when we had the match. We were over at school in Essex, and there was a match when you had a chain around me. You drugged me around the ring and all that. And I don't know if it's just us working Blood or what, if there's just that aura of working Blood. He slammed me on the floor, and he slammed me so fucking hard on that concrete floor. And it's just like, boom.
Did you pee?
And I remember I had to leave for Ocean City that day. And I went home and I went to change myself. And I had slightly shit myself.
Nice.
And I was like, that motherfucker slammed me so hard that my shit must have just exploded inside my body.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
But to be fair, because I eaten Taco Bell that night, and I had to work Blood Striker. We may have been a little tad bit
Let's
stiff.
get these worker names.
Hold on.
Jenny Rose.
But yeah, somebody was listening. I can't remember what. Somebody was his ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, I sent him sometimes on the apron while he was on the floor.
Oh, Jesus
And
Christ.
he just sprayed pee.
No, I never did the shit thing. No, that I never did. I never did the shit thing.
He peed himself.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
I was like, I'm sorry.
that's the first time I've ever said that to anybody. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, I was like, I'm gonna bring up, Chad. Especially, I didn't know that you pulled the shirt over his face.
Well, I was trying to.
He might as well just throw up in his own mouth.
Yeah,
Like,
I
sleep
know.
it.
I'm glad that you did it because I wasn't done throwing up. So I just kept throwing up in my shirt. I'm kind of like, oh, get me the fuck out of the ring.
And this is before I knew he was sick. I was kicking his ass.
Yeah.
And we never called anything in the back.
I threw you in the table and fucking covered it. He's like, dude, take it. You really do take it easy. I'm done. I'm like, sorry. So
I don't want to hold the foot out.
I threw him in the
all his
ring.
energy.
I threw him in the ring to take it home, basically. And I threw him in the ring, laid him down there, and rolled for the senton.
Yeah.
And I see him laying there, and you start bouncing.
Oh,
You're saying you're
you
bad.
saying you send time.
I think there's a picture of that somewhere.
Yeah,
You're
you're bouncing like a fucking waterfall, and while I'm up top, and I'm like, I don't
just pin me like right there.
Yeah.
Put your foot on me. Or even have Socrates go over there and pin me.
He was supposed to move. I was like, I don't want to land a throat, but I don't know if he could move. But no, I did come down, and you did move.
I don't remember the finish was. I remember one of you guys saying, take it home. I was like, gladly.
Dude, that was just one of the weirdest days, Blood. I was selling crabs because I remember it was in the summertime, right? It was hot. It was hot.
No, it was in like March.
Well, it couldn't have been because I was
Well,
selling.
And that was early.
Yeah. It was in the Sweet 16. Yeah.
There was something, some fires going on. So you thought you had fucking, I can't remember fucking.
You me?
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I had.
What was it? You said you had
Red Bull and vodka.
You're running Red Bull and vodka virus.
So at the time, you said you had fucking the Corona. That time's Corona, but it wasn't Corona.
The H1N1, is that what it was you were thinking?
Maybe.
Yeah,
swine flu or something like that?
Yeah. I was selling crabs like that day, and I remember business was like booming, right? I was killing, and I knew I had the show to do, and I couldn't take my car because my girlfriend at the time, my partner, needed the car to pack shit up and then go home. So I booked another ride. So the guy comes to pick me up, and I'm kind of like in a hurry because the show's getting ready to start, and I'm not even there yet. So like I'm dying, sweating then, and I get in the car, and the dude rushes me to the show, and he gets me out of the car. I grab my bags, and we ran down to the parking lot. You know, my bags, like I'm already blown up, like getting into the building before the show even starts. And me and Blood were pretty much up like as soon as we got there.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to.
It's alright, Chad. We'll figure it out when we get out there.
Man, I was dead to the world, just getting into the ring already, and then Blood's beat me all over the building, and I'm just like, my God, you know. And then
I threw him on the table of weapons.
Oh,
Yeah, you did.
There's an old table because it was like choose your fucking match or whatever.
Yeah.
So I threw him on top of all the weapons, and he fucking hits the razor. There was a razor gave a hair match.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like a razor scooter. I was
No, it
like,
was fucking like a fucking clippers. And he fucking lands on the fucking clippers.
And what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and take a break real quick to get a word in from some of our sponsors, and we're ready to go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Happy Hour podcast. Of course, we are sitting here with Chad Austin. What we're going to do real quick is we're going to get into our beer of the week, but also we're going to start doing a new segment where we have a shot of the month.
Shot of the month?
Yeah.
Because shot of the week. You got
shot of the hour. Okay, shot of the 15 minutes.
All right. Well, by request of Blood, it will be shot of the week, which is going to end up being expensive. And our first shot of the week is going to be none other than Fire.
What's for the fireballs?
My fiance is gonna love to hear this.
So what we're gonna do is
Chad's not drinking, by the way.
Come on, you can't do all three of
It's all
that.
done, it's over.
This is beer. This is beer thingies.
Isn't
No,
it?
no,
He's not
one of those is for Chad. What are you doing?
You give it to him.
Yeah, he is drinking.
He's not
Are you
drinking.
not doing it?
I'll do it.
You're not doing it.
Like, how much does it cost me money? Am I gonna get a tab when I leave here?
Shot. Hold on, smell it.
Yeah, that's Fireball. The yellow is beer. Come on, Blood. Give him the pro. He drank the whole thing of like a little keg. If you're watching Facebook Live, yeah, he has a Heineken keg that he brought. He drank the whole thing as we're going. But all right, so here we go. This is going to be our first shot of the week, the Fireball. Yep.
Nail this one.
Which are critique, but we never had it.
Yeah, we're
That's so smooth.
But no, Fireball.
Sunshine.
And now we're
I was just in fucking Dewey, Delaware, Dewey Beach, and they fucking had fucking a cracking chandelier.
The new Seattle NHL team is going to be called the Seattle Kraken.
Oh, yeah. And what we're going to do now is the beer of the week is going to be 1Y IPA by Oscar Blue Brewery.
Out of Colorado.
Out of Colorado. And what was it you were saying about the can, Chad?
If you look at the front of the can, there's a little circle on there. It's got a bunch of dots on it. Well, you punch that hole, you punch that dot out of the hole, you cut it out, and it's made for you to be able to smoke out of. Because wasn't Colorado the first state?
Oh, yeah.
Legalized,
That makes sense. That makes sense. So get yourself some 1Y, and then
Smoke some
doubles
weed.
up. And yeah, so there you go.
Get
So
high and get
so
drunk.
here we go. We're all going to take like a little
too bad it doesn't have like a fake vagina in the other end of the thing. You fucking do.
It could.
Not bad. Not bad.
Well, hazy IPAs are actually pretty good. One of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff. So make sure you're out. Pick yourself up some Oscar Blues Brewery 1Y IPA.
Oscar Blues has a fine line of beers. They're Oscar.
A fine line.
Yeah, their Dale's Pale Ale is awesome.
I like
The
Dale's.
Mama's,
Yours is
the
what?
I enjoy Dale's.
Mama's Little Pills is good.
Oh yeah, Mama Little Yellow Pill.
That's good. I
Or
mean,
have yourself a Deer Park Spring.
I didn't
If you're looking for alcohol,
years. I've had all those.
they put out good stuff. If you watch Bar Rescue, like I'm being in the beer business, the draft beer business, I look at all the tap handles in the backs of Bar Rescue, and I go like, oh, they got because the one on the other day had Mama's Yellow Pills on there. And I'm like, oh, and it was in California.
Oh, this is we're gonna get us. I've been traveling to all the breweries I find.
And you said you work in the draft beer business. So for those listening at home, what exactly do you do in the draft beer business?
I'm a draft beer tech. Like I maintain. It's a monthly thing. Like you have to maintain the systems monthly by cleaning the lines.
Clean lines?
And you know when they have problems, just shit like that. Like which, how about this? People listening to this show right now, don't drink draft beer anywhere because nobody is cleaning draft beer lines. Nobody is.
We just got rid of our guys. I'll talk to them.
Yeah. Like well, Chesapeake Beverage is the guys that you distribute for. They just literally gave up and sent all their business to another company.
Yeah, I was wondering why they don't clean our lines anymore. We have to clean our room. Yeah.
You should be getting. You'll probably be getting another company. I used to work for them, but I'm not gonna give them any press because they screwed me. Like it's one of them deals where you ever went to like your job and you know that you know more than what they're doing, and you go to them and you give them a bunch of suggestions, and they're like, "No, we can't do that. No, I don't see that happening." So when I quit and I talked to a couple of guys that worked there that I trained, they're all going, "Yeah, after you left, they used all your ideas." And I'm like, wait a minute, after I quit, you know, they started paying you like salaries and giving you insurance and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it was all my ideas, you know?
That's kind of the way it works with the wrestling business. You should think of it, you're like,
Yeah, don't say shit.
I did that. And
They'd be
Like
like,
my fucking gimmick idea. This motherfucker coming in and doing it.
that reminds me of the Chris Jericho fucking
who
thing.
apparently you're responsible for his stardom.
Let's hear it.
Like inadvertently. Like I didn't even know it until like a couple years ago.
yeah.
Like, I think it was 1995. I think that's when Jericho came in, ECW. It was like the middle of
That was
95.
around 94.
Well, Raven would call me all the time, and he would ask me to make tapes for him. Like he would get into this Jake Roberts phase, where he'd be like, "Hey, send me some Jake Roberts promos," because he wanted to like get the feel kind of thing. And I had just got the Super J Cup from '94, and I was watching it, and I'm going, "Dude, this Chris Jericho guy is really good." So I went to ECW and I gave Raven a copy of the J Cup. I wasn't trying to get Chris Jericho a job. I was just saying, hey, watch this show.
This is a good fucking show.
It's a good show. And he saw the show. He saw Chris Jericho. He went to Paul. And he's like, Paul, you got to bring this fucking guy in, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Raven would have never seen him. If it wouldn't have been for me giving him the tape. And I didn't know this until I ran into Chris a couple years ago. And I was like, wait a minute. I was at your first ECW show, and I said I was also in Knoxville when you broke your arm. The day you broke your arm doing the shooting
I'm so
stuff.
pissed about that.
I was the Cornet was showing us the building, so that's why he wasn't out there watching it. He's taking me, Brian, oh Jesus, just all of us showing us the building, and all of a sudden you get the Stooge was back and was like, hey, something happened to Chris. He has to go to the hospital. Jim was like, what? And then he comes back with the gimmick on. And you know the deal about.
So hard to watch.
You know the deal with the blade job, right?
Yeah.
Like he had the blade with his wrong arm.
Yeah.
And if you ever seen the match, he definitely bladed with his wrong arm.
It was 17 Harper's Ferry level.
Oh, yeah, he almost blended that. Harper's Ferry.
He was bleeding, and then somebody fucking.
Yeah, it was a TLC lumberjack 8-way. So as I was blading, somebody bumped into me and
Did I ever tell you, and you know Socrates well, and this is a story, we discussed this on War Pigs 1. And Mike was, I don't think Mike was here for this, I'm not sure. But War Pigs 1, what we did is we ran that company, AWL, me and Mike, we were responsible for that for a little bit. And Socrates is infamous for not wearing shoes. And me and Mike sat there and
You don't own any.
Yeah, and we were like, this motherfucker's gonna wear shoes. And I was like, Psycho, we need you to wear shoes. And he was supposed to get new gear from Lunar. Lunar didn't have his gear down. So he had on women's leggings. His cock's just flailing around in women's leggings. Like
No, those are real tights. Those are real tights that I had made. What happened was I forgot to wear underwear.
So what are you saying? This came back from one of your face parties.
his log is just windmilling the whole match.
Oh, is it
I
long?
watched that match like 8 times.
He has like the midget thing, like a midget. It's God's joke. Huge cock, can't use it.
I just want the hooker 3 days ago.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Only hookers.
Is it as long as that awful tattoo you have on your arm? I think it says 19th or something. How big it is? I don't know.
As a matter of fact, it is.
So we asked Socrates to get shoes. We're like, Psycho, hey, can you wear shoes, please, at the show?
I want the bookers. I haven't worn shoes in 9 years.
So Psycho's like, I'll try. So me and Mike are like, this motherfucker's gonna wear shoes. So he shows up. He shows up. So he goes out there and he doesn't have shoes on. So right before Chucky Manson, you know Chucky Manson, correct?
Yeah.
So right before Chucky Manson goes out, he had a bat that had tacks all over the bat.
I don't check his head.
No.
All right.
So he had tacks all over the bat. Well, hey Chucky, do you do me a favor? He's like, what? He's like, you see how Socrates isn't wearing shoes? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, here's what we did. We told Socrates to wear shoes. He didn't. So can you do me a favor? At some point in the match, can you do a spot where you smack him across the palm of his feet where you tap that? And he's like, yeah. So sure enough, Socrates, he's doing something. I think he's doing his hands and his knees, and his feet are just there. And I see Chucky just wind up, and I'm like, oh, here it comes. And me and Mike are just winding.
That match, the Plum was also in.
Yeah,
I was flat on my back. He pulled my leg up like he's gonna do like a leg roll, and he just takes the bat and fucking away.
Did it hurt?
No, it felt tremendous.
Honestly, theoretically speaking,
Well, honestly,
getting hit on the feet, it probably didn't seem like it would be
The same match he hit me in the nuts with it.
Yeah.
That hurt.
Of course, I was also told not to use sacks that match, and I was running back with like 800 of them in it.
Brand new canvas, so let's not shit it up on the first show, please.
yeah.
He grabs your bags, about 3,000 texts.
Before I pulled the tax, you were up in the, what do you call it, like the upper section. I pulled the tax, I pulled the leg, and I just started pulling the tax.
Slug, did you ever do a tournament? You did a tournament of that, right?
Yeah, he almost lost his leg.
Were you the one? You weren't the one that went through the glass door thing on the.
No, I went to the chocolate cart full leg.
Shot car ripped his leg wide open.
Were you a helicopter guy?
No, that was
Okay, yeah. It seemed like everyone I went to, they should have had a helicopter standby.
Well, this game was not hot because he died 3 times on the way to the hospital.
Did you work the one that I did?
Yes.
But I worked Kylie?
You worked Kylie, and I worked a 3-way with fucking 2 motherfuckers that don't even know their name anymore.
I remember going to that show. I went with Claude.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in the crowd, and Claude comes out and goes, "Hey, do you want to do a match?" I said, "In a tournament of death?"
Right. No, yeah.
And I was like,
Thank you.
"No." Right? He goes, "You're working a girl." And I'm thinking like, "Oh,
You
okay."
took one leg tube, man.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I get back we get in the locker room, and I was like, "Listen, this is what we're gonna do, Kylie." Kylie Pierce was a great girl. I mean, for being in a tournament, for us to take bumps in the ring that had broken glass all over the place, kind of thing. I was like, "Look, you're gonna get over on me." You know, at the beginning, hip tosses, the arm drags, all this shit. I'm gonna punch you. Just wait, right? And you know how there's all you get is the oh my gods and this is an awesome chance. Well, I punched her one time. She goes down, the crowd's yelling, "How the fuck can you do that? Punch a girl!" And I'm like, wait a minute. We're getting more heat.
We're fucking CCW.
Yeah, we're getting more heat than these guys that are going through fucking.
You probably don't remember, but I was in the back, and we were talking the match together. I was like, the Tennessee spot. You just wait.
I'm their bodies, man. Well, I was like, well, this is a tournament of death, so I gotta come up with something. So I said, listen, I told some fucking job guy in the locker room, I said, go out and find the smallest light bulb you can possibly find. And the guy came back with like a 6-inch aquarium, light tube. And I said, listen, this is what we're gonna do. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Candy was at the show. Maybe she was. Maybe it was Claude's girlfriend.
Yes.
I said, I'm gonna give this light bulb to you, and when I give you the Iggy, you run out. You get the light tube from the girl at ringside, and then when I turn around, you smash me.
Yeah.
That's the finish. So, like, we're getting all this heat, and I just remember going, we're getting way more heat than everybody else in the show, and all I did was punch her and kick her like 3 times, right? So I turn around, she smashes me over the head with this light tube, right? You know, of course, I just felt like it's the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
She pins me, and then I put my hand on my head, and then I pull my hand off, and I realized I had blood on my head, right? So I get up, and I'm running, I'm going, oh my God, I'm bleeding! I'm bleeding! And I run back to the first aid station, and I'm yelling, I'm bleeding! I'm bleeding! And the medic put me in a chair, and they go, what's wrong? I said, I'm bleeding! And they look at me, and they go, okay, where are you bleeding at? I said, somewhere, I don't know, blood. And they go,
There's blood somewhere.
they said, you're not bleeding, he's bleeding. And sitting next to me was Necro. Like after like his second death match of the show, he had blood just pouring down, and they told me to get out of there. I'm like, get the fuck out of here! Like, you're okay. And I'm just thinking like, oh, all right, well, whatever.
That was the tour business after I almost lost my leg. When I went, and fucking, so I'm coming out, they told me to like keep selling like you know, like last year. So I'm limping out there, and I fucking blade my leg. So it would like recut it, and fucking.
So we got guys now who can fall off fucking roofs of buildings through tables and don't sell it. Blood sold an injury for a fucking year.
Oh, yeah.
That's a worker right there.
Well, I remember when that happened. Like, I looked at him, and I was just like, I thought your career was over.
Oh,
when
yeah.
it happened.
You were out for like what, 6 months?
And I don't think we talked about this on the War Pigs episode. Didn't you get yelled at because you were bleeding? And I remember you telling me a story. Didn't you make your wound saying New York?
I got
New York?
yelled at because I was making it talk.
Yeah.
Saying New York, New York. Yeah.
And only Blood is the only guy that I've ever known in my life that would get yelled at and told, you're gonna die because he's making his gash, his wound, sing
I was making the
New
push
York,
on my knees.
New York.
On a death match show.
Yeah.
I remember after my match with Kylie, I remember I went back to what's his name, the guy that owns it.
Dandy.
Zandy, right? Yeah. I went back to him and I asked for the payday. Like, what's the payday, whatever?
Yeah.
And he tried to give me like $20. And I remember looking at him going, you know what? I don't need this $20. That's, you know, I mean, like, give it to these guys that are just, you know, mutilating themselves. You know, even though none of them are any fucking good. You know, no offense, Blood.
Yeah.
Even though none of them are any good, I'm just like,
Yeah.
some of these guys.
You were at the tournament though I lost my leg at. Because you made the shirt that I wore.
No, my best friend.
Your best friend wore it.
And he was pissed at you. Oh my God, was he so
What
fucking...
was the shirt?
I'll tell you what it was.
It was a killer shirt.
It was a Kiss Killer shirt. That I was already firmly in the business, like wrestling every weekend.
Yeah.
But Tournament of Death was the only show that I would pay $20 to go see. I had to go see these fucking idiots go out there and fucking kill themselves. So me and my buddy would go to every show. And it was the fans bring the weapons.
Yeah.
And you probably weren't out in the parking lot. But all these people had all this, all the weapons were lined up outside. And my buddy took...
Before sure I was loading them up.
It was a Kiss Killer shirt. It just said Killers. And my buddy took thumbtacks and he put them reversible into the shirt because he was figuring that if somebody gave somebody a big splash, you fucked it up. You fucked it up. It's what you did. And
Did he wear the shirt inside out?
No, he just didn't.
I didn't make a big deal of it, you know.
Well, he didn't land right. He kind of like landed and rolled, and it didn't kind of like give the whole like.
Well, I tried to like give it all the tacks. I didn't land on the splash. I landed all on the fucking tack.
I popped my ass off because when the wrestlers were going out and grabbing all the fucking weapons, whatever, and I saw Blood go over and he grabbed my buddy's shirt, and I was like, oh, Blood grabbed your shirt. And he's like, oh, cool. I hope he uses it, whatever.
Yeah.
And then after he like didn't do it,
But I wore it out. I wore it out the whole time, and I didn't. Nobody knew it had tacks in it.
Yeah.
I should have like put it on, like, oh, you know, big deal.
My buddy was fired up about that. And all the people here that Blood had to use it.
I didn't do the fans bring the weapons. If people would just bring the stiffest shit.
Oh, dude.
Oh, yeah, they bring the weirdest shit.
I just went with Chucky and Shorty one time, and some fans brought a fucking vacuum cleaner that literally had to weigh like 50 pounds. And Chucky's just beating me across the back of it. I'm like, that's not gonna break. Come on, bro. Just
The same tournament that somebody just bought. I'm pretty sure it was just a bottle full of piss.
That was me. It wasn't piss. It wasn't piss.
What was it?
It was beer.
It was beer and it just smirked AIDS.
That's me.
It said AIDS.
And that was
And
me.
nobody would use it because they're like, no one in our fans probably is AIDS.
No, like literally, like we're watching all these people bring all this equipment in. Like somebody had an electric guitar.
You brought AIDS.
So the strings were barbed wire. Right? I remember
Yeah,
seeing
I remember
that.
that.
And I was like, wait a minute, I don't have a weapon. So I somehow found a jar and I just poured beer in it and wrote AIDS on a piece of tape.
Nice.
And we're checking into the show and the guy was like, what is that? I said, it's AIDS.
It's AIDS. What do you think?
And the guy was like, you can't bring that in there.
That was like in a back locker room, that was a major thing of controversy because no one wanted to do it because everyone thought it was actually AIDS.
It was just beer. And I'm just thinking like, how great would it be that you get this guy all busted up and he's bleeding halfway to death and you go and grab the bottle that says AIDS.
He's not that cool. People have
Marcus said the whole story. Like Chad Austin, he just fucking it's not AIDS.
Yeah, it's beer. I actually, because the guy made
But they were more worried it was pee.
the guy made me dump it out.
Well, see, here's the thing. If Blood would have known if it was beer, he probably would have drank it.
Yeah.
It looked like he was drinking AIDS piss.
Yeah, the
I
guy
want
made
you to miss that shit right
the guy made me dump it out like right at the line, get in, like just to make sure.
Right.
So I dumped it out and I said, now watch. And I grabbed another beer and I was like, now is this cool? He's like, okay, now that I know it's beer because he had it in his hand, so it wasn't coming back to me anymore. So he knew it was safe, and I'm like, I can't believe he thought I really brought AIDS. Like,
The locker room thought that was tremendous. They were like, oh,
Did everyone actually
you
use
brought
it?
AIDS. No, I don't think
I think everybody was afraid to use it.
Yeah.
You got all these
Everybody was afraid to use the AIDS.
Yeah. Shocking.
I'd have used it, but then again, I know a lot of
Well, yeah, I mean, you
It's
gave
too
my
late for you,
horn.
idiots.
Everyone does it. We went to SWO, you blew my horn. I'm like, well, now the horn has AIDS. Like, I can't ever use that horn ever again. But speaking of which, when we were on break, we brought up Nikolai Volkov. Nikolai, Maryland legend, WWE Hall of Famer. Nikolai has been a staple here in Maryland. He was also a Maryland delegate here in
No,
Maryland.
he was a house inspector.
House
Yeah, he worked for like BG or something.
Yeah.
And almost every show I went to, even if Nikolai wasn't booked, he would be there. He'd just be there signing autographs.
In that stupid suit.
Yeah.
He always wore
Fucking
50 years.
And what show was it? I remember it was early when I first started on it. Steve Briggs worked it.
That was right across the street
Yeah,
here.
right across the street.
2004, I can remember.
Yeah, yeah. And he got mad at Steve Briggs because he ate a slice of pizza before the match.
And there was a three-way match. He ate the three-way.
Oh man, yeah. We were talking about that. Why did he hate three-ways? I don't know.
He said they killed the business.
Of all the things that could have killed the business.
Yeah.
Maybe three-way would have improved his marriage life.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe he never really had a three-way. He was bitter at that.
How dare you? I'm sure I fucked Nikolai, so I'm sure everyone else would.
Now,
Nikolai,
we're starting to get a little there with time. We'll probably run over a little bit, and that's fine. But Chad, so here's what we're gonna do. What can you think of road story wise? Some of the wildest road
Best
stories.
road
And of course, you don't have to name names if you don't want to. Bob did it. We try to get some stuff out of Bob. And Bob, he had them, but he also he didn't want to get himself heat with saying certain stuff.
Oh yeah, because Bob's still relevant.
Yeah.
Bob's getting booked all
Like Bob, Vince will know who I am.
I tried to call Bob the other day, but he said he had New Japan on the other line. I'm sorry, I'll call you back when I'm done talking to what's his whoever Jado.
Talking to Taco.
So, what would you say out of all the years you've worked locally with, Cornette, with ECW, what do you think some of the wildest road stories are?
Well, I don't have any with Cornette because I was only in for a night.
Yeah.
So it was a one and done. But I do remember the night that I started in Ozark Mountain and I didn't have the ride, I asked this dude, I don't know if you know Brian Logan. He wrestled under a bunch of names for Cornette. He was like a good hand. A good, what hand is. A good underneath guy.
Yeah.
But he was wrestling under the name Christian Devereaux. And the night that I came in, I asked him, I was like, listen, I got a bunch of money. Like, you know, I saved up like $2,500. I knew I was gonna start, like I said. But so I was like, hey, if you take me to the hotel, the Admiral Benbow, by the way, where everybody in Memphis stayed at, $40 a night. And I said, we'll go out and, you know, it'll be on me. So we go down to Beale Street, get fucking ripped, loaded. We're dancing at BB King's, like, we're on the bar, like on the stage dancing with them, with the strippers and all the other shit. We get ripped on up, excuse me, and we get back to the hotel, and Christian gets all, he feels all bad, and he calls his wife who lives in Knoxville, and we're in Memphis, and he's all drunk up, and his wife says, you better get your ass back home, like to Knoxville. So I wake up the next morning, and I look, and I don't see him there, and I don't see my bags there. And I walk down to the lobby, the lady's like, yeah, your roommate checked out, here's your bags. His wife called him and made him go home. And that was Bert's #1 baby face. So automatically when I had to call Bert, I had to tell him, I was like, dude, I just ran your #1 baby face. It's like out of town. And that's when I knew I was just taking water. Like it wasn't going to push me. No. But like with the ECW stuff, when it comes to all the other podcasts that I've done, I'm nowhere near in the ballpark. You know what I mean? Of the balls, Mahoney.
You're not Bob Starr's league.
Oh, no. When it comes to road stories, Bob Starr's not in my league. I got drunk with, I did WCW, but that was another fuck up thing.
Yeah, I didn't know you did WCW.
Yeah, Jody calls me and says, I'm working for ECW, and Jody calls me and says, hey, we're thinking about redoing the, cruiserweight division. Are you interested in coming in? That's when they started. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, sure. So me, Bob, and a couple other clowns get back into my car, and we drive down there. And I get there, and I look at the lineup, and it says Chad Austin versus Vader.
And Chad's like, nope.
I said,
This is not a cruiserweight.
This is not going to be for the cruiserweight title, right? I don't think so. You know, and then Vader like ends up like fucking beating the shit out of me. Like, he was great. I don't understand who these people are that say Vader is so stiff.
It's Bob.
Bob Starr.
I don't understand who Bob Starr is saying that Vader is so stiff, because Vader was perfect with me. He was light as shit. And then when it came to the finish, remember when he did that flapjack finish?
Yeah.
Well, he fucked it up. Like, when he pushed me down, he pushed me so hard on one side that I landed cockeyed.
Oh.
And I'm laying there, and I hear Holy Ratio, power bomb. And I'm thinking like, why are you fucking this up?
Fuck you.
Right? So he beats me, and I get back to the locker room, and I walk in, and I thank Vader, and I thank Mr. Race. We get back to the hotel, and remember the stories, well, you might remember this, and Ray, you too. Remember when the Steiners and the Nasty Boys were in that phase where they were getting people, they were slipping people with drugs, so when they pass out, they shave their head. Like, I don't know anybody in WCW. You know, I'm just there for the tapings. I don't know anybody. We're all at the hotel bar, and the Nasty Boys and the Steiners call me over into their booth. Right? They had a booth. And then the Nasty Boys get out, and they sandwich me in the middle of the Steiners and the Nasty Boys. And I'm thinking like, I know where this is. I know it. And I'm checking. I know where this is. I know where this is going. And they like, you want beer? You know, they got me a Budweiser or whatever. The whole time I'm keeping my thumb over the top of the beer. And I'm drinking it, and I'm just keeping my eyes on it. Right? And then I'm done the beer, and they were like, are you ready for another one? And I said, no. As a matter of fact, I think I should be going to my room. And they were like, no, pal, you gotta stay down and have another one.
Take your home, take a day.
Yeah, and while they're like debating whether or not, you know, like, to give me a beer or whatever, I literally crawled underneath of the table. At this bar, I crawled out, I was like, dude, sorry guys, but I gotta go to my room, because I know the end of this.
I know what's happening.
I'm trying to save your life.
I've read this book. I know the finish and how this ends, and it's not going to be with me, right? And so, and that was one of the cool ones, because they thanked me. The reason why they called me over was because they thanked me for how I put over Harley. Because he's like, you know, that showed a lot of respect. As you walked into the locker room and you thank a guy who wasn't even in the match. Like, he was in the match. You know, he may not have been physical, but he was there. And don't you thank everybody?
Put you over, yeah.
And I'm leaving the next day. I'm walking down a hallway, and remember that Mean Joe Green commercial? where the kid's walking down like
the
t-shirt. I'm walking one way down the hallway, and then Sting's walking across the other way. And Sting yells out, "Hey kid!" And I just go, "Yes sir, Mr. Sting. I mean, what do you got planned?" I never heard any Sting stories about, whatever. He goes, "You worked Leon last night, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes sir." And he goes, "He put you over. He said he really walked you over, and he took care of you." And I was like, "Thank you, Mr. Sting." Like I was waiting for him to bring me a Sting shirt.
What are you doing, kid?
But the best thing about the WCW run was we're at center stage, which I've never been center stage. I never worked there. I just knew the locker room was in the basement.
Oh wow!
Like literally, the ring was above the locker room. Like you go down into this little tunnel, and then the ring's above you, and you're dressing down in there. And I go to catering, and literally the whole entire time they brought me in, I worked Vader once, right, for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They didn't book me for the rest of the fucking week. Like I was not on any run sheet for anything. I'm going, why did they bring? What the fuck is this, right? Because I came from ECW. And they just figured, hey, we get some money, works for ECW, we'll just chop down. ECW chops me on TV. What do you think you guys are going to do in my career that Paul's not already doing? I don't know, I
was gonna say, so for all your years in the business, do you have a favorite match or opponent that kind of stands out?
That was a question we actually just got. Your buddy who's in the wheelchair. He just asked that on Facebook Live. I was just getting ready to ask.
Wheelchair Ray?
Yeah.
Fuck you, Ray.
It wasn't against him.
Yeah. What would...
Hey, he's a real stand-up guy.
You're offensive.
Man, I don't know. Like usually, a lot of the guys that I've worked with, that I consider like my favorite opponents, were usually guys that I worked with at the schools.
Okay.
Guys that I worked with, like Keenan Creed was always a great opponent of mine. One of my favorites was Ronnie Zuko. Like I love Ronnie. We were going out one night and we were getting hammered, just getting hammered. Driving around, listening to the Cottonmouth Kings, go fucking figure. And I told Ronnie, I was like, one thing I've always wanted to do was I've always wanted to work a 60-minute match. Like with no...
Yeah, no problem.
But not planning it. Just going out there and seeing if we can call a 60-minute match.
Yeah.
It must have been 1:30 in the morning, and we are completely hammered. Ronnie pulls out a set of keys. And he waves it in front of me. I go, "What is that?"
Let's fucking do it.
He goes, "It's the keys to Bone Breakers." I go, "So what are you saying?" He goes, "You want to do the match?" And I'm like, "Let's go do it." I'm wearing jeans, and a t-shirt. He's dressed up to go out, whatever. We go to the school, we get in the ring, we start working. We had a timer set, everything. About halfway through it, the Briscoe brothers come strolling in. This is gotta be like 2:30 in the morning. The Briscoe brothers come strolling in the middle of me and Ronnie like killing each other in the ring. And we were just like while we're working, we're like, "What are you guys doing here?" We're picking up some ring gear from Rich and Earl or whatever. And I'm just like, at 2:30 in the morning? Why can't you wait till tomorrow? Whatever kind of thing. So yeah, Ronnie was always great, but I never got to work too many guys too many times. Like I worked Bill Dundee, I probably did 6 weeks of working Bill Dundee, probably 4 nights a week. And one night I specifically killed him. Like I literally almost killed the poor superstar. Like he slams me and he goes, "Moonsault." And I'm looking at him. I remember specifically looking down at him and
You were me.
I'm going like, what? Like, I'm not Kurt Angle with the moonsault. Like, I'm not fluent. I'm going to land. So I said, "Listen, Bill, I need you to roll in. Like, roll towards the buckle. Don't roll out, because I'm going to jump as far out as I can.
He rolled out.
No, he sat up. He thought that I was going to land, like, right behind him. So I go up figuring, like, well, I'm not going to hit him. So I can just do it as free as possible. And all of a sudden, I see the superstar just sit up. I'm coming down, going, "Oh no!" And I squashed him, like literally. He could have like literally.
Did he like fold down?
He could have did his own business down there. Yeah. And literally, and then literally he goes, "Sucker, do it again." And I'm thinking like, this time are you gonna roll in? He goes, "Yes." So we did it again. So for some reason he liked working me because I was easy, I was light, And he had this gimmick where like he was kind of going blind, So like 1 out of every 4 or 5 punches, you know, it was a tater. And if you screwed him up in a match, you would usually end up with a bloody nose. And you would hear the whole, I'm sorry, mate. Sometimes I can't hit what I'm seeing, right? So I'm going like, I never once ended up with a bloody nose or you know, he never stick me, right?
He didn't want to kill you like everybody else in the business?
No, he was one of the few people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of the guys I worked, I'm always like, I never got a whole bunch of negative feedback, you know, stuff with the New Jacks and Sandmans and guys like that. But for the most part, if I worked you and I left the building in one piece, I usually considered it like fun.
Yeah.
That's why I like working with the guys from the EWA because, you know, it was towards the twilight of my career where I could just go ahead and have fun. It would give me a chance to like just get back in the ring.
All the JD Byron show were awesome.
Oh yeah, those were also, they were also hot.
JD Byron.
Oh my God.
They were
Let's
so
go
hot.
news.
And then what it would be is it would be double headers.
Yeah.
There was one show where I literally worked 3 times. I worked a singles match, a tag match, and a
The
fucking
Bundy
out
show.
one.
Bundy show.
Oh my God, it was so bad. And it's one thing that sucks in my career is, you know, Blood, you've been able to work Chad. I was never able to work Chad. Chad's one of the guys.
I will work
that
him
was
once.
a little-
I never worked Chad on the show, but he was actually one of the first guys I ever got in the ring with when I started training.
I was always dropped it. Yeah.
Finish the bottle, guys. Yeah, I mean,
Here you go, Fireball.
Take it
There you go.
the JD Byrider shows were fun, but them outdoor shows like in the summertime,
Oh, yeah.
man, you can't. The ring gets so hot.
Oh, God.
Dude, yeah, I was telling our guest last week, Theo Vanderloop from Eager to Kill Town, that when you did those shows, the ring would sit there for hours. So by the time the show would start, the ring would be big. You know, we didn't have fabric cameras.
Like we're
We
gonna
had
have a griddle.
vinyl canvases.
Like we're gonna have a
So,
griddle.
yeah.
I did a show one time at the Cecil County Farm Fair, and not only was it like 100 degrees, but we were set up right next to the cow pen.
Oh, man.
So it was hot as fuck, and the cow shit was just wafting through the whole show.
The JD Byrider shows, those other shows, I worked Adam Cole there. I won the Maryland title there. Didn't Derek and DJ, they had a street fight there.
Oh,
DJ
yeah.
got busted open.
He got put the windshield.
windshield. It was the show where me and you fought in the back of the U-Haul.
Yeah.
And I was like, Blood, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to run up the ramp, and you backdrop me into the U-Haul.
And I was like, are you sure? I questioned it.
Yeah. I was like, if
I'll
you
do it if you want.
backdrop me, my legs are going to hit the top of the U-Haul. So I bailed midway through. So we ended up with this awesome photo of Blood mid backdrop and me just hand and face first crashing, burning into the back of the U-Haul.
You talking about DJ Hyde?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Fuck you, yeah.
He didn't want to kill me. He didn't want to kill me. I wanted to kill him.
I hit him in the head really hard with that.
Listen to this shit.
Your chops were the. You chopped that motherfucker like a fucking champ.
I'm not gonna lie, I was rubbish at that match.
I went to a Combat Zone show, and it wasn't that long ago. It was just a couple years ago. I went with Claude, and I have a little cooler, much smaller than the one I have today. I only have like 6 beers in it. And I'm with Claude in the locker room, and I'm walking around, and DJ walks over to me and he goes, "What's that in the cup?" And I said, "Beer."
Beer.
And then he goes, "Oh, you gotta get out of my locker room." I go, "You fucking murder people for a living. I'm not even on the fucking show. And you're telling me like that, you know, I can't even drink beer in your locker room? I'm not even on it." Like, you know, and he's like, "No." I go, "How hardcore is this fucking company? Like, where's Andy? Can I get him on the phone?" You know? Because I'm sure he wouldn't throw me out of there.
No.
Well, I meant to bring this up earlier when we brought Kylie Pierce. The ECW arena. There was a show that me and you did, Blood, where Maven Bentley put it on. It was Maven Bentley
Okay.
situation. And it was all characters. It was the Legion. I forgot who the Legion were. Oh, it was the Legion versus Sean Bishop.
The Ultimate Warrior.
That Maven Bentley as the Ultimate Warrior.
Was this when you were at the Easter Bunny?
Yeah. It was when we were at the Easter Bunny. They had a dog collar match between Clifford the Big Red Dog and Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
You went as the War Pig and you wrestled a dragon.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
was
a dragon? Yeah.
I teamed with the dragon.
Yeah, you team with a dragon. And
Against
Kylie
the
Pierce.
torch in the hair.
Yeah. And Kylie Pierce was the Tooth Fairy. And she worked DJ High and she hit him in the mouth and chiclets fell out of his mouth like she was knocking his teeth out.
boy.
And I was like, that was by far probably one of the greatest shows I've ever worked in my entire life. Because I'm like, this is
Just all
this is
ridiculous.
pro wrestling and it's in the ECW arena.
It's like we're
This
just
is
fucking kindergarten.
It wasn't that show. I did a show for
ECW
Ramble.
fans.
I did a show for Brother's like, it's gonna be me and Rocky against Socrates and the fucking chicken. I'm like, who's the fucking chicken? He had Brandon Scott come out dressed as Big Pecker, the wrestling chicken. And let me tell you, that match was 5 stars and a half.
Brandon's pretty good.
Oh no, he is.
I like Brandon.
No, Brandon's good.
I mean, I follow him. It seems like he's one of them Maryland wrestling success stories.
Brandon's one.
I actually love working with Brandon.
I love watching him and his fiance. He's been with his fiance since like the beginning of Rambo's when he first started working there, and they've been off and on. And I'm gonna say they're a wonderful couple.
However,
We're going to have the show again.
Well, I mean, technically we're live on Facebook too. So.
God bless you, Brandon and the girl. I love you both.
I love like following up on all the guys that came out of like.
Oh yeah.
Now,
What is it?
yeah,
Brainbuster.
Whatever the MCW school is.
Brainbuster.
Because I mean, it seems to me like Leo Rush.
Yeah.
Like he kind of got a bum deal, but he.
That was later in the year.
But he needed to be smartened up.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe that RJ and Danny and them guys like didn't really smarten him up. And then when I
I think
started,
Pat did try to.
and then when I started hearing this shit about Pat,
yeah.
and I'm thinking like, fuck, man, all the greatest talent that Orlando, remember the Orlando?
Oh my God.
I'm thinking like all this great talent that comes out at NCW ends up with some stupid like thing, and I'm like, they're all completely talented.
You love the cock run wrestling, you know?
Well,
So what we're doing is we're running a little bit over on our time.
Alright.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask one last thing before we go. Hey, you don't have to name names.
Would you like it?
I just, I heard it. I'm not sure if I heard this from public school. I heard this from, but there was a story that I heard of you on the road, and no names or anything like that. Did you or did you not indeed see someone being slaughtered cannon by Sergeant Slaughter?
I'm glad we're not naming names.
Slaughter Cannon? Even I don't know what's going on.
You don't want the slaughter cannon. You don't want it from either. You don't want it from the arm, or you don't want it from the waist down. Yeah, that's completely. That's on. I believe it was like, wasn't it You So Crazy that mentioned some cow, whatever cow arena?
Oh yeah, cow show.
This was at Boonesboro. Remember Boonesboro?
Yeah,
They had a
yeah.
cow ranch thing
Yep.
around.
Yeah.
Like it was at the aforementioned Sergeant Slaughter, and Iron Sheik was booked on that show, and I was Sheik Boy's manager. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the infamous night where the guy sold the Sheik oregano. And we're at the hotel, and the Sheik's running down the hotel room with a fucking sword, and he's completely fucking naked. And he's yelling, "I kill you, jabronis! I kill you!" And we're just like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And then I got a knock on the door from another one of the boys, and it's like, "You gotta come see this." And the door was kind of creaked open, and then like we were kind of like peeking our heads in, and then like we were laughing so hard we kind of jarred the door kind of open, and then when we opened, we saw the victim. I guess that's all you can call him.
He was doing the job.
Or maybe he was the enhancement talent. I don't know. But he fell into the fetal position. Like when the sergeant started to run and walks, and he was just like all balled up, and we're like, oh boy. Like how are we ever gonna look at you the same, man? You know?
We can never salute you again.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever told the said victim. Like, that we know.
We know what
The said victim is watching.
Yeah.
He now knows.
Shout out to you, so
No. As soon as that door opened up enough that when we saw the sergeant turn around, we were like fucking roaches. we all ran. We were like, we got back to our rooms and we're like, what room is on so and so in? We called him like, can you believe that? Like, what we just saw.
So it just.
Yeah, and it was only 3 of us. That I know there was 2 of us, but I think there was like 3 of us that like it was like a classic sitcom moment where you got one guy down at the bottom looking, and then another guy over top of the shoulder, and another guy over top of that, and we're looking and going, what the fuck is this? Like,
Just pull a Pat Patterson.
and then we're thinking like, didn't we all meet the sergeant's wife? Like, you know, is she cool with this?
So, and I heard that story. free. And every time I would sit there and go back and watch promos with Sarge talking about the Slaughter Cannon, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He's talking about giving someone the Slaughter Cannon.
It wasn't a clothesline, believe me. It was more of a close lift from behind.
Close fist. That's close fist.
That's what really what it was.
All right, guys, we ran a little bit over.
So Sarge was doing the big spot before Joey Ryan.
And guys, we ran over. Thank you for joining us for the Happy Hour podcast. Chad, thank you for being on. We're definitely going to have you back in the future. I'm sure there's so many stories that we didn't touch on, so we'll definitely have you back. Of course, this is Ray, Mike, for the War Pigs, Socrates, and Blood. And of course, Chad, we will see you guys next week. We will be here next week with pro snowboarder Luke Trembaugh, also known as the Dingo. We will see you guys next week.